Follow along as I completely change the look of these family heirlooms. Great furniture, super well built, beautiful, solid wood. Just dated. First thing to go is going to be that base on all the pieces. Okay, this is the inspiration photo. I put together all of the samples that we're going to be using: paint, stain, and hardware, drawer liners.
I'm Shireen with Olive Street Designs, and I'm showing the process of furniture refinishing so you can learn too. Be sure to subscribe and follow for more.
Time for the little cordless screwdriver because there's a lot of hardware to remove. Hardware alone can really date a piece. And wow, what a difference already just taking that off. Time to clean. Krud Kutter it is. It's a good degreaser. There are years and years of buildup and grime and whatever. This actually felt waxed. So Serious Grit 120 is what I started with. Nope, wasn't enough. So carbide scraper it is. This finish is very thick, and as I mentioned, may have been waxed, and so it felt like it was just going to gum up my sandpaper. I'm fighting with a little bit of an incline on my driveway, so this keeps sliding around. Just an added bit of fun. But I used the carbide scraper for as much as I could until I was just worn out. I went back to the sander, but now I'm using an 80 grit. And finally getting that finish off of there, at least on the flat parts. Now I've got to deal with the edges. I am using the carbide scraper just on those areas that are flat. I don't want to make any gouges. And then off to the rubber sanding blocks. These are amazing. And that's a sanding net. This also will help cut through this really thick finish. And it just sort of molds. Now I have an assortment of them, and so I can choose which one molds to whichever area I'm working on. I'm changing now to one that will get closer into that edge right there. And then now one that's going to do the rounded area. There we are. If only it went that fast. This took quite a long time, and I only have 9 edges to go. But that one is stripped, and so is my thumb. So now I'm wearing gloves. Yeah, the sanding nets are just, they're not nice. They are rough, and it got my thumb too. So anyway, back to the 80 grit. Now, see that swirl? If you see that on your wood, you got to stop right away. That is buildup, and it will just make the most horrible marks in your wood. So get that off of there or change sanding discs. But here we are, all done. Yay! Now I've got to go through my grits because that 80 is not going to work for staining. So I went to 120. This is 220. And then my surf prep for the edges, because this nice sponge will just mold around everything there. Otherwise, I'd probably need to do this by hand and again just go through grits. I went from medium fine to extra fine with the surf prep. And there they are, smooth, beautiful, fully stripped, gorgeous. We're changing all the hardware, but I am going to reuse that outside hole, so I only have to fill the inner hole. I'm using a product new to me, JB Weld's multi-purpose putty. It's very much like the Bondo all-purpose putty, but there's been a shortage, so I've switched products and I'm really liking it. Sand everything, and here goes that base. I use painter's tape just to mark off where I'm going to be cutting. This is a jigsaw. Just going to cut a nice straight edge. We'll speed it up because this does take some time. This is thick wood. Takes a little bit of time. I leave the tape on to do my sanding just for reference because I want to make sure I get that nice and straight. Take it off. How did we do? Sand the edges. And this is, wow, I mean, what a huge upgrade already. So now to the long dresser. Can't forget the nightstand. I think it made the biggest difference on that little nightstand. Okay, time to move on to the rest of the body of the dresser cabinets, and they're all going to get scuff sanded. You know, these were in great condition, but even still, they have little dents and dings everywhere. Plus, we need to scuff everything up because the paint needs something to grab onto. I'm just using that same little sponge to do all of this by hand around the curved part of the drawers. And now I'm measuring the holes for the hardware placement so I can drill new hole for that inside hole because the spread on these poles is much different than the ones that were on there. New holes everywhere. Sand those because they're kind of rough after you drill the hole. And then now I need to clean up part of my workshop because it was covered in sand. Continue cleaning. I'm wiping down the inside, outside, and side of the drawers, putting them back in. Thankfully, I numbered them so I know exactly where they go. And wow, these are prepped and ready. Masked off the top of all of the pieces so that the top is preserved because I'm going to be staining that. Into the spray tent, put up the sidewalls. Let's get going. From spraying primer, this is a gray primer. I use gray because I think it hides better, and you see I have a whole bunch of different textures and colors to work with, and I want one uniform color. Boom, there it is. This is Sticks primer. It's my favorite primer. I use it almost exclusively on every piece. It has fantastic adhesion and coverage, and one of my favorite parts is after it dries. Well, this isn't my favorite part, but this is. Going back in after it dries to sand everything down. I think this really is what creates the smoothest texture on the paint afterwards. That was a damp microfiber cloth just to grab all of the dust. And here we are, the transformation begins. This is Restoration Bronze by Melange in the 1 formula. Just a great color. I mean, this is as neutral as green can get. It's like a chameleon color. Very warm, but just goes with so many things. That little space in the nightstand was actually kind of tough. Okay, so it dried for a couple of hours, and then I'll take all the drawers out. I'm in between coats because I need to get those spaces there underneath the drawer. Just the little flange that hangs over on the cabinet. I do that by hand. I just touch it up with a little foam brush. And I also hit the bottom of the drawers because, especially the very bottom one, it hits against the trim there, and it's difficult for the sprayer to get in there. So I just touch up the bottoms. I did another coat of paint, and this is top coat. Several coats of top coat as well. Now to reveal the preserved top. Pre-stain conditioner, you got to use it. This really helps with the overall consistency of the stain going on without being blotchy and consistent. Okay, so I'm using a edger, and this just make quick work of putting the stain on here, but it also just, again, makes it very uniform. This is a water-based stain. This is salmon stain in the color dark oak. And microfiber towel. I know a lot of people use paper towels for this. I don't care for that really, so I just take my microfiber towel and go rinse it immediately, and all that stain comes off because I'm using water-based stuff. Again, pre-stain conditioner stain. Wipe it off. And beautiful. Love making that wood shine. I'm letting that stain just completely dry, so I'm going to go ahead and put the hardware on while we're waiting. Lots of new hardware. This is a great color, a complementary color to the paint. It's champagne gold. And now for some top coat. I tint my top coat with just a hint of the stain also, just for some more consistency. I'm going to be doing drawer liners. I don't like to put in drawer liners with a bunch of excess and cut it off. I cut these to the exact measurement on my drawer. Make sure everything's clean, dry fit. Peel back part of it, seat it in there, and then take the rest off. Get it in there, make sure all the air bubbles are out, and there it is. Voila.
Let's take a look back at where we started, and this is where we are now. I think the combination of the paint and the stain with the hardware that my client chose was just perfect for these pieces. And now they can live with their family heirlooms in a way that makes everybody happy. They get to keep their inherited pieces, but they fit into their lifestyle and their home. I hope you like it. Make sure to follow for more.